hi everybody. David Fogel, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, and back with you for another Symphonina Foundation podcast. We took a week off. We had a busy week last week as we were at the Hollywood Independent Music Awards, and I want to congratulate Daniel Fisher again on winning in the Best Contemporary Classical category with the Symphonina #2, and also Alexander Unsteth from our album Ascension, Symphonina Rising, was also nominated. We were very fortunate to get 2 nominations from the same album in that category. And congratulations to everybody who was nominated. It was great to see all my friends, meet some new ones there at the event. We had a great time. But now we're back in the world of doing podcasts. And up today is Anna Williams, violinist for the Neave Trio, along with Mikhail Veseloff on cello and Ari Nakamura on piano. Anna, how are you doing today?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to be speaking with you, and congrats! What a week!
It's been good. It was great. It was well, you never go in expecting anything because it's all your friends and you root for them too. And
totally,
when it's your turn, that's great. So we appreciate it.
Yeah,
but I did want to ask you. I think I got to see you perform, if I remember correctly, at the Grammy Museum event last year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it was tremendous. I mean, just tremendous. You guys are so good. So I want to ask, how did you meet?
How did we meet? So classic, super exciting. Misha and I met in grad school. Okay. And we were kind of set up, I would say, musically and ultimately otherwise, I guess. We were kind of set up, paired together to play the first day and just really hit it off, and really kind of knew from the get-go that, in our sort of wildest hopes and dreams, we would really love to do a piano trio just because of so many factors, but like the repertoire and the sort of amount of storytelling it can convey is very special. And we just kind of always felt that and connected over that. And then we met our wonderful pianist, Ari, who's now Auntie Ari to our 2-year-old.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they are best friends. We met her a little while later and felt that sort of instant chemistry that, again, you're sort of like, oh, this can happen. This feeling can happen. How amazing.
Happening. That's what's going on. Yes. Well, that's where'd you go to grad school?
I went to the London School of Music in Cambridge, where I actually also am on faculty, and it's been a real full circle. But then I also have gone to school in Manhattan School of Music and grew up going to NEC, and I'm a New England gal. Yeah.
So I do know, I believe I know that you picked up the violin very early, like 5 or 6 or something like that.
I never want to date myself, so it was 6.5, David.
6.5. Okay.
Yes, I was one of those for sure.
That's when the half years matter. You get all the half years are rounded down. So
you need that half a year. You're just like any misshift is like, it was a half a year later, guys.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So did you was the violin chosen for you, or did you gravitate to it?
I gravitated to it, and it was a various, it was many factors for a little kid. One being the most profound, which was, I had a friend who did it, and I was like, oh, she's really cool. I want to be like her. But then that kind of neat thing that can happen when we make decisions when we're young, like I kind of grew into it and grew to really love the tone, and God, just. I mean, don't get me going, just so much about it. I understand everyone's favorite stringed instrument is the cello, and I'm married to a cellist, so I live with this and I know this. But I've always really loved violin, and I've always loved the colors. And I also had the real gift of being paired with a wonderful teacher from the get-go who was so nurturing. Doobie, if you're listening, you're still so loved. And just the importance of that, it actually, there's sort of a funny story about it. I had a bit of a speech impediment when I was little, and there was thinking in my extended family, I don't know, maybe we should get this checked out. So I went to a speech therapist, and this therapist who was, I won't name the person, but they were just very not who you'd want your kid to go to. They were really like, are you sure the other kids aren't making fun of you? And, you're very this is, and just sort of not the vibe, Yeah. So my mom took me out of there, and then it was immediately, literally in the same town in Massachusetts, walked to the music school, she said to the front desk, the person working at the front desk, she's like, I don't know anything about any of this, but I just need someone who's kind. And that's how I met my teacher, who was my teacher for 7 years.
See, that's great. Okay, so you lucked into it, and that's great, right? I mean,
Lucked into
you
it.
could have lucked out of it again, but you lucked into it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you probably had other good teachers along the way. What do you think the attributes of a great teacher are?
Oh gosh, that is such a good question. I would say truly the ones that kind of enter into the craft with the intention of empowering, if that makes sense. I think there's so many kind of old school models, and there's so many beautiful things about them, right? Like there's all these traditions that you can kind of only glean by passing them down. They're of a bow hold, or a style of shift, or even a posture thing. There's so much of that is obviously very tradition based, and that has its own beautiful place for sure. And but that being said, I do think that when it crosses over into it must be done this way, and it's only valid if it's done this way,
Hmm.
which can happen, that becomes disempowering, and I think can make people feel like their voice, their sort of artistic voice, their musical voice, intention and creativity kind of doesn't matter. So that when you can avoid that, when you can rather, instead of doing that, if you can empower someone with the tools necessary, which of course there are endless physical, mental tools that we need to exercise, when you can lead them towards, okay, but what is it that you're really trying to say, that I think makes for the most profound teaching experience, having been lucky enough to have some of that.
Yeah, I think that's great. When you're carrying on to that, when you're approaching a piece of music, you have an album
Yeah.
out in Lemare from June. We'll get to that in just a second. But when you're approaching a piece of music like that, which is well known,
Yeah.
do you try to give it your own interpretation, or even maybe at the nuance level, but in some way, or do you try to replicate what would be like a standard repertoire interpretation?
Well, so you mean specifically with Lemaire,
Or
the
anything that's a classic like that people would know?
yeah, I mean, gosh, it's so many great questions. I think that our field is really, as someone who's not a composer, as someone who's in the recreative art of, you take what's on the page, whether it's written hundreds of years ago or currently being written, you take what's on the page and you try to bring to it all of your experiences, your intuition, your training, and kind of like what I would think a really fine actor would try to do. You're trying to bring what's there to life in a way that feels authentic and not like you're phoning it in and copying something that's been done, inspired by so much, inspired by so many artists and previous artists and artists of today, etc. But I think still that kind of analogy of like a truthful quote unquote actor who's bringing of themselves and not trying to copy.
Yeah.
I think is kind of the business that we're in, and so looking for things that feel like they're in the character of what you're doing, and also don't feel like they are like a quote unquote supposed to. Like, does this gesture make sense? Would I sing it this way? Does that feel organic to me? And does that feel like that's sort of helping bring this sort of vision on the page to life?
I think there's a balance probably in let's see if you agree with this, of trying to be
Yeah.
true to the composer's intention while being true to your own intention, something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that you're in service of, if you're coming to it as not, I'm trying to, make of myself, but I'm trying to make of this the most I can. I think then you're in a good place, on a good path, where it's about not me, but about this work, and what can I bring out in this score that I'm excited about, that feels like, oh yeah, that was the color that feels right here, and in many cases, as is obvious, we don't have the luxury of always getting to speak with the composer. Many times they're long gone. Sometimes we do, which is its own incredible experience. But yeah, it's especially in those times when you feel like, the person isn't here, but we're sort of trying to use our best instincts and bring to life something that feels authentic and isn't about me wanting to, sound pretty.
Yeah, right.
Not about, oh, it feels good to play it this dynamic or this color when it doesn't serve sort of the scene on the page.
And I bet too, in a trio, you each get your chance to be in the spotlight. So you're not really fighting to be in the spotlight or have any contention whatsoever. You're a trio. Hopefully there's no contention. So
Right.
it's not like you have to, okay, this is my, well, in a band, in a quote unquote band, like,
Yeah.
if there's a lead guitar thing, you could be competing with the other guitarist, or you could competing
Right.
just on volume with the drummer or the bassist or whatever it might be,
Right.
but not in your case, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so your album La Mer came out in June. Let's tell us a little bit about the genesis of the album and how you go about making the selections for what you want to put on an album.
Oh gosh, you have great questions.
Thank
This
you.
is so fun.
Appreciate that.
Not that you don't know that, but this is so fun.
No, I have to tell you, this is, I think, podcast probably number 65 or so for us.
Oh my
And
God.
we started it, near the end of last year, and it's been just a delight to speak with you and everybody up to you. And hopefully my questions get better and better as we go. But I will say I appreciate it, and I learned from you. I learned from everybody that we interview, and I try to take those little grains of knowledge and apply them myself too. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. No, I feel similarly. I feel like I learned so much from learning from these conversations of our colleagues and yourself included. So I mean, I would say about La Mer, this, it's kind of like in any. I had a coach. I promise this is related. I had a coach years ago at the Banff Center who just loved Mark Steinberg of the Brentano Quartet. He's so amazing. And we had a question like, how do you like, I think it was about deciding, how do you sort of decide big things or a rehearsal technique or whatever. We had a big question for him that was one of these like, how do you, master, how do you, and I remember the answer he gave was, oh, it's always a mess, a beautiful mess, but it's always a mess. And I was like, that's so good. That's so truthful, of the searching. So, whether it's in rehearsal or sort of coming to a concept of an album, that can always, be there. I think for us, we were really, really taken with this piece, La Mer, which is, of course, it's known mostly as the incredible orchestral suite by Claude Debussy. But then, of course, we're not an orchestra, so this is an arrangement by the living composer Sally Beamish, and it's its own incredible thing because obviously you can't quite literally take this score for an orchestra and there's just not enough hands.
Right.
But and so you can't literally make it for a piano trio, but she creates something that is so magical in my opinion and captures sort of the essence of the Debussy and the colors and the sort of the sweeping gestures and the very sort of transportive imagery that the Debussy has. And she just captures it beautifully. And we came across it. We were like, oh my God, what if we got to record this? This would be so good.
Yeah.
So, then we get about thinking, well, what would make for an experience as a listener? Because that's really what we care about is how can we provide some kind of experience that has meaning and that you come away from going, wow, I really felt like I went somewhere. I really felt something. And so the Saisons was a really fun sort of not the same, but similar energies in a way. It starts with this very kind of, I would say, turbulent feels. We would always say in rehearsal that we're like, this feels like waves, like this feels like a surging wave kind of brooding scene. And so even though it's, not literally the same, we felt that it had that sort of same or a very complementary kind of palette. And of course, those are both French composers. And then the other was Mel Bonis. Just these short, two little movements that are just little gems. Mel Bonis was a very prolific French composer whose full name was Melanie, but she went by Mel to try to sort of get her under the wire that she was in fact a woman composer. So she's getting a little more kind of recognized these days, which is cool. So that, it's morning and evening, and the sort of light you can see in the music, you can kind of hear it and feel it. We felt like it had that same kind of atmospheric richness that kind of, fed into the overall.
Yeah, it sounds good. So you're going touring sometime soon, I think. I know you've performed at the Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall, the Smithsonian. I mean, my goodness, all over. So where are you off to next?
Well, actually, tomorrow we're all headed to England with our 2-year-olds, so it'll be 4 of us, and we're gonna record again, which is very exciting. And then, yeah, and then during the season, we'll tour a lot in the States, and we'll be back in England in February, playing at King's Place, which is a first for us, which we're very excited about. And yeah, we're there. We do have a lot of. We're very grateful to have lots of opportunities to connect with audiences, which is so cool. We're also in residence at Virginia Commonwealth University, so that's where we have our little. That's when we put our suitcases down. That's usually where it is.
That's nice. Yeah. When you're traveling with your suitcases and you're traveling with your violin, I read someplace that you have a violin from 1794. Is that okay? So
that date I do know. Yes.
that would be so-called irreplaceable. So what measures do you take to make sure that violin stays okay when you're traveling with it?
Oh gosh, you just, you should always in general be really nice to flight attendants, but also like definitely you should be really nice to flight attendants because they're in charge. And I've been very lucky, knock on wood, but oftentimes people are very understanding of like, oh, could I put it in the closet or could I put it in the overhead, but not maybe right up against your seemingly 300-pound roller bag.
Exactly.
It's always a little stressful. I will say you have a good case, you have a good climate controlled case as much as you can. But yeah, it's not the least stressful way to go.
You could take a violin case and put it in a cello case and do it that way, double case it.
Then you have other sets of issues. Exactly. Yeah,
that's true. So as a sax player, sometimes when I have gigs from now and then, I don't gig very often, but sometimes. So for those of you who might ever see the video, behind me here is my dad's old tenor, which is a great tenor. But I have another tenor, which is not as great a tenor, but it plays very nicely. But it's, if something happened to that tenor, it'd be like Anna's violin. It's irreplaceable. So, there's some gigs you don't take that sax to. And I'm wondering, do you always take that violin? Do you have a backup violin that you sometimes, I'll take this other one today?
It would be smart if I did. I wish I could say, yeah, no, I think ahead and I have the loner. No, I don't. I should, truly I should. But I will say that, as string players, one of our things I think is that we do get really attached to the feel of a specific instrument, right? Which I know pianists don't have the luxury of. And I empathize every time. I'm like, I know you just get what they give you, and that's really tough. But yeah, you do get really attached to the sound and also the feel and the specific kind of fraction of a millimeter of the spacing and the width of the fingerboard and whatnot. And those things aren't exact from instrument to instrument. So yeah, I do. She's an old lady, and
long may she live.
She hits the road. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we wish you good luck. Yeah, we wish you good luck with all of your travels, your recording, and everything that you're working on. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Oh gosh, well, so neavetrio.com is our website. It's neavetrio.com. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're not on TikTok because someone needs to teach me how to do it. But I should be. And then yeah, you can find us in all those places.
We're going to listen to some more of your excellent work, Anna, on the way out here. And as always, if there's anything that we can do for you, you just let us know. We're always happy to help.
Thanks so much. This has been so fun.